Welcome to World Talk with Friends, where the small world we live on becomes smaller as we discover neighborhoods all over the world by simply talking to our neighbors. This is Haggy Shack Radio production, simulcast over Wolf Spirit Radio Network. Colleen Kelly is producing with friends Nancy, Nora, Renate, Neel, and those we have yet to meet. Welcome to our world. Talk with Friends. This is Nancy Hopkins. Colleen Kelly is producing. We have Renate Jett with us, who was on with us last week talking about Africa. And tonight, I'm saying tonight because it's tonight over in Bangladesh, we're talking to Neel Akash. Is that how I pronounce your last name, Neel? Your mic?
That's perfect. That's good.
Okay.
Neel Akash is fine.
Excellent. Neel is a friend of Renate's, and so we're going to let Renate and Neel kind of like open up the discussion with how did you guys get to meet each other?
Good question. I was thinking yesterday about it. It was around the time we were all in the Brock Brader group. And Neel kind of was in and then out. Something happened. I don't know. But somehow I catched him somewhere else and I saw him writing in this beautiful language writing they have in Bangladesh. How would you call that, Neel? The writing?
We call it Bangla, but it's better known as Bengali.
Okay, because that was kind of, I catched me and I asked you for friendship. And then I watched you writing, and I think it was even poems you were writing. And that was even one more, and I thought, wow, nice. And this beautiful, almost like a picture, a painting, the writing is very beautiful. And then we started talking and I asked Nate if he would help me prepare something for theater, which now is changed completely. So that's kind of how we met, or this is what I remember from meeting Neel. And ever since then, we are always kind of in contact, writing, chatting, reacting on each other's posts or so. And it's kind of a friendship, although we never met. Neel, what would you say?
Yeah, that's correct. Ever since then, I have been in quite an admiration of Renate. She's quite a personality with her performances. I haven't seen any, but I've seen videos of it. But we've been in touch ever since.
Yeah, and it's how many years? It's almost 4 or 5 years, something like that. It's really a long time. So, Neel, really, because first I thought you live in New York, and then we found out, or you kind of said you live in Bangladesh and you are in Dhaka. And could you kind of explain how that is living in Dhaka? Because I think not many people have any idea of living in an Indian or Bangla or Pakistani huge city, because it is something different. Could you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hectic. The first word that comes to mind. It's difficult, but we get used to it because I've been here. I lived in the United States for about 13, 14 years. I lived in New York as a younger person. Then I came back, and I have been living in Dhaka for about another 13 years, I think, now. So people ask me, how do you do that? Because nobody ever comes back. Because most people, once they go abroad from here, that's it. Hardly anybody ever comes back unless they have to. For me, I didn't have to, but I'm still here. So as far as the city is concerned, it's the city and the villages are absolutely different. But most people live in the cities these days. So it's pretty bad. I kind of don't want to exaggerate it because it's so bad that I don't want to give you a negative impression. You kind of have some idea. Sure.
What made you go back, Neel?
That's a very interesting question because I don't have a very real or solid reason for it. I think it was some kind of a strange calling for me because I had a good job. I was working on Fifth Avenue. I had a pretty decent job and decent life too, but something happened. Actually, I think it had to do with my personal life because I broke up with a long-term girlfriend and that probably had something to do with it. But I didn't really come back to stay here. I came on a vacation when I came, I think. I can't even remember anymore, but the point is, I didn't like that job anymore that I was working for maybe about 4 years. It was a programmer analyst job, and it was kind of so-so job. So anyway, IT related job. So I'm not sure why I came back, and then.
But you had grown up there, is that correct? That's where your family was from?
Yes. I actually, when I left for the United States the first time, I was, I think, 19 years old, something like that. So, I grew up here in Dhaka. So it's not so much strange for me, except that, there are people of different classes here. It's a financial thing, a money thing. So people with moderate money, middle class people, tend not to stay in this country because the privileges are low and the lifestyle is kind of difficult. It's not bad, but it's very difficult. And it's not stable. You could get into trouble anytime and there's no real protection unless you know people and stuff like that. So, it's a typical, I don't really want to use the word third world kind of.
But it's typical, no?
Yeah, these stereotypes I prefer not to use, but anyway, so.
Well, let me ask you this, because to be honest, when you asked me if I knew anything about Bangladesh, I was like, I'm not sure, because we have, the only thing I can really bring up in my head is that Bangladesh had terrible, tragedy over there. And
yeah.
Then when I looked it up in the map, I knew it was in that area, but I didn't, know specifically. And it's between, India and China, is that correct?
No, not exactly. It's you can say between India and Myanmar or Burma, previously known as Burma.
Okay, yes, Burma, yes. Mm-hmm. Now, is that,
it's a very
did those
interesting
countries
location
ever,
I guess it's very
being
similar
so
to
close,
India.
tell us the
Centuries,
political,
actually.
the
I know
regional
India.
thing.
I will
How
not. No, I
can the
cannot
countries
no.
kind of come together and be separate?
Oh, we have a.
I'm sorry.
Hello?
Did you understand my question? Neel? Hello?
Nancy, can you repeat the question, please?
Are you not hearing me good? Is it breaking up on you?
Yeah, it's suddenly breaking up just now.
Okay.
Well.
I'm going to, sometimes it clears itself, okay? So I'm just going to repeat the question. I'm kind of interested in getting a feeling for the region. Alright, so that we can then, feel like you got India and then you got Burma. Were these countries ever one country or culture or society? Or was it tribal to begin with and they've never just merged together?
I think, as far as Myanmar is concerned, that's been a separate country for quite a while. But before that, I think the whole area was basically known as the same culture, more or less. Because Bangladesh has certainly been a part of India not too long ago. This was broken up in, I think, 1947. And then we became a part of the country named Pakistan, but we were known as East Pakistan wing of Pakistan. And India had hand between the two wings. So Pakistan was actually in two different geographic locations, separated by India. This was the case until 1971 when we had a war of independence. Is this something you wanted to hear?
Yes, I do. I want to get a feeling for the region.
Okay. So next to us we have Myanmar, to the right, to the east of us, and on the left, on the other three other sides, we're surrounded by India, and that's correct. Yeah. So, and in the south, we have the Bay of Bengal, which is also an excellent port. And I think throughout history, people have been using this port for imperialism, for whatever conquest or business. So Bengal has been sort of an interesting zone within India all along. I get that feeling. I haven't studied history all that much, but I'm just beginning to. So I'm getting that impression that even when the British East India Company invaded India back in, I think this was back in 1757, right? So they originally came to Bengal, and then they defeated this Nawab named Siraj-ud-Dowlah, and after that they took control of Bengal and started looting the resources here, right? And then with this resources, they used this money and wealth to take over the rest of the India. So strategically, this must be an interesting point geographically, I think. So, and this has happened before too. And also, after India was taken over by the British, it was Bengal that tried to fight back, which is interesting. And we couldn't do much, but it seems to me that Bengal was the trouble area for the British. So it's kind of like that.
Now, do you feel that it's the trouble area because of the culture and the people, that they are more unified, that they see things in a more cohesive way? Or is it just that they were so badly treated that they were the first to revolt?
I think it's a combination of both. I really think so. Because as far as the basic cultures, well, we have a bit of a mixed culture here because Bangladesh originally was separated. In fact, Pakistan was originally separated from India because of the religion, because the predominance of the Muslims in these two areas.
Okay, so let's just talk religion for a bit, because it's so dominating in any culture. So just set it out. India must have a different religion. Are they Hindu versus the Muslim?
India, I think, is predominantly Hindu, but they do have many other religions which I don't really know much about. But yeah, they are predominantly Hindu culture.
But when the Pakistanians broke away from India, it was over the religious question.
That it was, but it's kind of interesting because it's been like that, a mixture of Hindus and Muslims for many, many years before the British came over. So why now they decided to separate, that remains to be explored. You know what I mean? It's like...
Oh, so you think that everybody was being okay until the British brought in something.
Exactly.
And what do you suspect that is?
Excuse me. They have this typical divide and rule policy that everybody knows about, right? So this was part of that. And, but there is kind of a dramatic difference between the Muslim culture and the Hindu culture in some ways, because it's just inherently so different in some ways.
Can you elaborate?
Sure. For instance, Muslims have to pray 5 times a day, right? So that's a lot of prayer. So you're supposed to go to the mosque at least once a week. This is for men only. And then you have to fast for 1 month, the whole month, which becomes quite dramatically affects the lives of the people, right? Because right now in Dhaka city, the Ramadan just started. So it's like the offices will be closed maybe 3-4 hours earlier than the normal time because of the traffic problem, right? Because everybody has to get home before sunset. So, they have to hurry home, and the traffic problem is tremendous. I mean, I think we have the world's worst traffic problem, as well as many other, living standard problems in this city of Dhaka, where I'm living at. So this is a difficult place to live. I mean, if you come from outside and you've never experienced a third world country or a poor country or developing country, you'd have a tough time, because it's just, everything is kind of the opposite of what you would expect. For instance, if you're on a big road, you're driving on a big, large road, and the side road is onto your left, for instance, and you're driving, and you would expect the guy coming out of the side road would wait for you, but they don't do that here, right? They jump in front of you, so you have to brake. So, you know what I mean? So it's like these little things that are so different and aggressive. So that can make life very difficult.
Now, as far as the, we kind of got away from the religious question, but, yeah, let's go back to the religious question. But I am interested in this automobile thing, because that is so much a part of America that everybody's supposed to own an automobile. Do they also have that attitude over there? I mean, does everybody own an automobile? Is that why there's so many, or there's just too many people and not too many of them have cars, but it's more than enough?
Exactly. That's exactly right. Too many cars. It's not too many people have cars, but it's already more than enough for the roads that we have. So it's overcrowded, extremely overcrowded, and aggressive. But the funny thing is, there aren't that many accidents, because everybody's prepared to save themselves. So even though it's like, terribly terrible traffic jams and everything, but not that many accidents, because if you get into an accident, it's your loss. You're not covered with insurance, so you have to pay for it. So you save yourself. So that's how it is. So in a way, it kind of makes us safe in a strange way. But back to the religion thing. Let me talk a little bit about the religion of Islam as it is now. Okay, should I do it this way?
Yes, maybe? Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what happens is, this is kind of my own personal interpretation, because I've been lightly studying this subject, trying to understand what's going on in the world. What's happening is, my understanding is that what we have in Bangladesh right now is not exactly the original teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. It's kind of different, and I think it's more better known as with the term Wahhabism or something like that. I don't know if you're familiar with this term. It's kind of like Saudi Arabian version of Islam. That's more like the mainstream culture. So the Islamic
fundamentals that you understand in Bangladesh match more Saudi Arabia?
Yes, but maybe not so dramatically in terms of keeping the people separate. For instance, in Saudi Arabia, a lot of people women have to wear the hijab, the burqa thing, and if you go to a party, the ladies are sitting in one area and the guys are sitting in a different area. They're not allowed to intermingle, right? That's the culture over there, as I know it. So over in Bangladesh, it's not so bad. We still have people mixing together, men and women, but it's kind of drifting apart these days. There's more cultural propaganda on people, ladies wearing the niqab, and they're making it a fashion thing. And it's more like the guys and girls are getting separated from one another, as if it's not safe.
So it's actually going more conservative?
Exactly. It's actually going downhill, which is weird. But not as bad as Saudi Arabia right now. But it's kind of tending towards that way, if you ask me. And I find that kind of revolting. But anyway, that's my personal view. But
now, is that because of the influence from Saudi Arabia, or is it just because, what do you think is driving that tendency?
It's not a direct, the Saudi Arabian influence is there because of the internet right now, because people are more connected through the Facebook and stuff like that, so people can see what's going on in Saudi Arabia and stuff like that, right? And the tendency of an average Bangladeshi person, Bangladeshi Muslim, is to take a look over at Saudi Arabia, Mecca and Medina, what's going on over there, because they like their religion. So they want to know how they do it over there. So they see their dresses, the niqabs, and all those things. And they want to copy those things. So that's how it's leaking into, the culture is leaking into Bangladesh through the internet, I think. But other than that, the real influence actually comes from the Islamic faction of our education system. We have three main branches, I can say, to simplify things, right? In the education system, we have three branches. One is Bengali medium, which is basically everybody speaks Bangla. Second is English medium, where students are learning American English and they tend not to speak Bangla anymore, stuff like that. And the third, and this is kind of a least expensive option for city people and also the village people. This is called the Islamic education, and we call those schools madrasas, right? So this is the three main factions. Now,
so
that last category is like a religious school.
Yes.
Like here you have Catholic schools.
Yeah, and it's also residential most of the time. So they totally follow an Islamic lifestyle with those students. They oftentimes they memorize the Quran and they learn Arabic and they study Islamic books most of the time. And interestingly,
it sounds to me like you don't have any government sponsored schools. They actually have to pay to, and they can go into one of these three type of schools.
Well, you are mostly right, but there's some government sponsored schools. There are. But basically for the Islamic schools, there's this thing with donations. Oftentimes people donate to these schools. This is public donations, right? Private donations. So they fund themselves through the people's money. So oftentimes the madrasas are the cheapest way to educate your children, right? Because it's the least expensive option. But I'm not really sure how much of it is government sponsored, to be honest. I don't have this data. But a lot of times, because people tend to donate money to the mosques and madrasas, and we call these orphanages. So that's how they finance these institutions most of the time. But what I wanted to mention was that the curriculum of these schools. Do you have any idea who determines these curriculums?
Would I know? No.
Yeah.
Over here, it's all so much government controlled. You've got breakaways now with the different private schools, but virtually, the vast majority, almost everybody in America goes to a government-sponsored school, and that used to be when I was growing up. Well, you had a certain, let's say, a curriculum that was sort of standard because it was giving you the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. But then as things began to, let's say, get more controlled by the matrix, the curriculums began to be put down by first the states and then, actually it was more like the federal government forcing the states, but now it's federal programming and planning that really the states have to adhere to if they're going to get federal support. So instead of having, the basics and then within a given county or city that you had, like in my town, okay, we had a school burned down, so the town did not have the money to be able to, because they didn't have the space to have all of the, like football and the basketball, all of that sports stuff was still being done, but they didn't have anything for space-wise to train the kids. So all of us went through most of our, junior high school without any physical education at all. Now, so again, it was because of the economy. It wasn't because of anything. I mean, they could do this because they were essentially autonomous in many ways. We don't have that here anymore. So over in those schools that you're talking about, the 3 different ones, was there any mandatory curriculum that they all had to adhere to at least that, and they were then sort of independent? Or do you feel like there is no set curriculum except by the schools themselves?
It's more, excuse me, it's more or less set by the government. It's you don't have that much leeway for, changing the curriculum, I believe. And the basic fundamental things that everybody has to study is actually decided, I understand, by some British organization. They actually study, they do the research, and they make the recommendations on which books will be studied in these madrasas and all the curriculum and stuff. So, which is interesting because we don't even decide what the students are going to read.
So the British still have control over there?
It seems that way because this is very subtle because people don't really know where who's controlling these curriculums. We have, we do have government agencies and the Board of Education and everything, but who controls those organizations? Nobody really knows.
Well, are you within what's the government structure? Is it democratic or is it, with no what do they call it, principality? Is it a religious based? What's the politics?
It's a semi-religious based democratic system on the surface, but as you know, if the people are not very conscious or educated, and if they don't understand what's being done, how it's being done, the democracy is actually just a farce. It's a travesty. It doesn't really work because over here, they just buy the votes. There's an election going on right now, and what's happening? 2 things are happening. Number 1, the richest people are buying the votes, paying people to vote themselves, and number 2, the party in power that has all the money in the world because they are taxing us to death. So they are using, just the local resources to beat up the other parties. They just beat people up. So you cannot compete with these people. Right now, Bangladesh has become basically a dictatorial. What do you call this? Sort of a Indian hegemony. How do you say this word? I forget. It's controlled by Indian intelligence companies. Intelligence.
Okay, so essentially you see the corporate fingerprint all over it.
That's absolutely true.
I mean, I know for a fact that there is no republic in America. It is a corporation that is running everything. They've usurped the government's, what would you call it? The agencies that were supposed to be government, they just came in and sort of took them over, but it's a corporation. And until the American people understand that they do not live in a free country, they are being controlled by a corporation. I mean, we talk about democracy, we talk about communism and socialism, but right. Who the hell is talking about the corporate control?
Exactly. So
only us people that on the ground floor that are going like, duh. Can't you see it? Right. Now, I noticed, I did not get a chance to read your blogs, but I did notice that, you talked about, Perkins, the economic hitman.
Yes.
Okay. Now, my question to you here would be that, do you see, if you agree that this might be part of it, are you seeing over there that Bangladesh in that area might have fallen prey to the program that he talks about in that book?
Yeah, it's 100%. It's been like that. ever.
Can you please do me a favor? Because I found that, but first off, when I read it, I was shocked that he survived to write it. You know, it wasn't so much that we didn't understand how it was done, but for him to blatantly tell the ins and outs and who died because of it. It's a fascinating story, and too many people do not know of it. So would you do us the honor of just going through Perkins's book, and then, you know, explain by using Bangladesh, to explain how it happened there. Could you do that for us?
Yeah, I can do that. Great. Okay. So basically, to simplify what John Perkins has written, is that the New World Order type of imperialist people, mostly from the United States and UK and countries, powerful countries such as these, they go to different countries and they talk to people in power, and then they set up their shop there. They try to set up some technological parks or some big projects that must be set up by these governments, which are actually traps for getting into larger and larger debts and losing control of a country. So over in Bangladesh, what happens is, I'll start with the War of Independence in 1971, which was a big thing for us because we used to be a part of Pakistan. And then in 1968, there actually Indian intelligence branch started this PSYOPs, this special project, to break off East Pakistan from Pakistan. And that was successful by the year 1971. And Mr. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, he became the uncontested leader of Bangladesh first, after independence, right? However, he was murdered in 1975, I believe. And I was reading up some research material the other day on Obama, and I found out that the guy who ordered the assassination of Mr. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in 1975 was Mr. Henry Kissinger. So, which I was like, wow, so how does that work? So what happened is, this is the thing. Sheikh Mujib was originally, my understanding, he was an agent of Indian intelligence. He won the election of, 68 or 69, I'm not sure. This was the Pakistani general election, and he won it. And the reason he won it was because Indian intelligence spent money on him and the election. So that's how they did it. So he was basically an agent of India. So that's how he broke off Bangladesh from Pakistan. But the thing is, nobody complains about it anymore. No Bangladeshi thinks that we should go back to Pakistan. So that's another thing.
Okay, let me just get some clarification here. So, okay. India wanted the Pakistan area that was right next to India. So they kind of like gobbled it up, and there was a war situation occurring.
Yes.
That left Pakistan that had Bangladesh in it now. Bangladesh and Pakistan were still the same country. So then they break off the Bangladesh area.
East Pakistan branch, yes.
East Pakistan, okay. But the guy that becomes the head of this was an Indian intelligence officer?
No, he was a Bangladeshi person, but he was working for
he was working for them.
Yes. That's my understanding. That's my personal understanding.
Yeah, that I understand. And so what you end up with is that India now has taken and really put Pakistan into probably half the size it was, or even less.
Yeah.
And was that because of the religious connection that you saw? You said originally that maybe you thought that the British had brought in this bone of contention between the religions?
Right. That's what they did.
Okay.
And that happened in 1947, and we're talking about 1971 now. So it's been a few years in between, a few decades. So,
wow.
Right.
Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt the story, but I just wanted to clarify for myself, what we were really seeing here. Okay, go ahead.
All right, I'll just finish it up. It's that the name Henry Kissinger, right? And he was also responsible for turning back a ship full of wheat when there was a terrible famine in Bangladesh in 1974, right? So people were dying, and there was a ship coming from America full of wheat, and it was Kissinger who said, "No, we're not going to do this. We're turning back." So the ship went back, and people died here. So that was another terrible thing that he did. So anyway, but I only found out recently that he was the person who ordered the assassination of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So what happened is, see, the reason he was murdered was because even though initially he might have been an Indian agent, working as an agent for Indian intelligence, he turned around, right? He was trying to do the good things for the country, because he was a patriotic man after all. So that's when he became a problem and he had to be murdered. So I think this is part of the reason why he had to go. So this ties in with the John Perkins thing, because this is how, foreign powers change the patriotic leaders of countries like ours, right? For instance. Then we had another great leader whose name was Mr. Ziaur Rahman. He was actually a military figure. So after Mujib was murdered, he became the president, and people sometimes accuse him for murdering Sheikh Mujib, but I don't know if that's true, because this guy turns out to be quite a patriotic guy and pretty brilliant in my eyes, because what he did a few strange things that we haven't seen before. One is he started digging canals all over the country to promote irrigation, right? So we don't have to depend on rain and drought and all those things, which was kind of a very interesting, ingenious kind of idea. Number two was he was doing traveling throughout different nations. He went to America, he went to Saudi Arabia, asking for, basically begging, but, helping out, asking for help. So that created a lot of, trickle of money from different countries for us. So the economy went up. So that actually helped. So he had to also die after a few years. So he was assassinated as well. And then another guy named, Mr. General Ershad. He was general, and he's also accused of murdering Ziaur Rahman. He came to power, but this guy, he was highly corrupt. Even though he's known to have built some infrastructure, some roads that we needed, and he's given credit for it, but it may have not been him who did those things. It might have been Ziaur Rahman's projects that he just reaped the benefit off of. It might have been that. Anyway, so, and what's happening is, right now, we have this political party named Awami League in power, and they've been in power for almost, 9 years now. So, and these guys, they have a very strong bond with the Indian intelligence. This is my understanding. So, we have a very strong control by the Indian imperialism, if you want to call it. So this again, this government is continuously doing projects that seem to help India more than it seems to help us. So this is again, it's a foreign power taking over a country and ruling it. That's what's essentially happening. And the people, we are disempowered because we cannot overthrow this government, even though nobody likes it, because they're highly corrupt. And they're doing things. One of the things that needs to happen, I think, in the world, it's kind of similar in America and in Bangladesh, is that people are disempowered, and this corporate oligarchy they have too much power and they buy out the political system, and the banks own these people. And this whole thing is just a prison camp, a concentration camp for the rest of us. It's like we just watch and swipe our smartphones, and we don't know what to do. So this situation has to go, and we're gonna have to have people carrying the leaders. If we're still gonna have leaders and politicians, they need to get back into caring for people, not just raise taxes and smack us around. For instance, I'll give you an example. I'm drifting away from the John Perkins thing. Sorry about that, but I guess I'm done with it. Except for one thing.
I think we should go back to it, but
okay.
Go on right now. Talk right now.
Okay. In that case, the way I see it happening, according to what John said, here is through the military. We have this thing called EPZ. It's basically the three letters EP and Z in American terms. So we call it EPZ. So these EPZs are highly technical parks being set up in different industrial areas of the country. And these are strongly controlled by military people. So, and what happens is, in a decision-making process, for instance, we had to make the decision to subscribe to submarine cable, fiber optic submarine cable for all the countries, that everybody has to subscribe for the internet to flourish in the country. So this is it's a good thing. I mean, we should say yes to these things, but the pricing, we don't get to know how much is being spent on these fiber optic cables, that subscribing to these functions and satellite frequencies and stuff like that. So it's all out of our control. And what happens is, basically we have to bring in the foreign expertise and to do the setups and all the infrastructure work. And then, basically we don't even know how much loan we're getting into, what is the national debt, because in the United States people can see the records and people can figure out the numbers. Over here you cannot do this because it's all opaque. Nobody ever shares the numbers. The government doesn't tell us anything. Our media is strongly controlled by the government. They shut down any channel, TV channel, radio channel, magazine, online newspaper, anything that talks against the government or tries to tell the truth, immediately shut down. So you have complete media blackout over here. All you hear in the media is this government is so wonderful, everything's just great, hunky-dory, that's it. So that's how it is.
You've actually just described America too, because even though you would think that we could follow the money, I'm trying, Catherine Frith, I think her name is, and maybe that's not right, but she's in a, huh?
Yeah.
She's
Yes.
She she's so fascinating because she had been very embroiled in the U.S. government, and then decided that she could do more for people. She's a do for others type of person, and so the government sort of like put her through so many hoops that she couldn't progress in that particular occupation or endeavor. And so then she decided that she was going to follow the money. And she said that, in fact, you can follow it to a point and then there's like a black hole and it just disappears. And this is somebody who was extremely, extremely knowledgeable in all sorts of financial enterprises. So, no, you can't do that over here, too. What I want to go back to Perkins because what they were doing back in the primarily the 60s, 70s, up through the 80s and the 90s, was, according to Perkins, and he calls himself an economic hitman, because what he would do is that he would go into a country and he would convince the leadership that it was to the betterment of the people in the nation if they put in big dam systems for electric power and big roads so that you could have commerce and, you know, all of these telecommunications so you can grow the economy. Well,
Yes.
first off, I'm assuming that the first president of Bangladesh, the one that got assassinated but had started out as an intelligence officer for the Indian nation, that this guy probably didn't fall for it. Because why would Kissinger be ordering a hit?
Exactly.
And he was not alone. There were many, many truly good men throughout the world, and John does in fact name them. He tells about this one and that one who refused to play the game. Now the game was, and many of them who did play the game did it because they were bribed. Some of them probably threatened, but, you know, I mean, basically the game was that, oh yes, we're going to put all of this stuff in our country. And because we got all of this stuff, the country is going to become, like the United States, Britain, and France. They're going to go from a third world country into this marvelous, marvelous first world country, and everything is going to be fine. The reality is that none of this stuff was worth a damn to these people or this country. And all it did was it forced the country to get into debt with the banks over the banks. Oh, we'll come in. John would come in and he'd have an open bank account for them. Look at this. You're going to get all this money from these banks to be able to build this. It's not going to cost you anything. You're just going to have to pay it back when your economy gets so good that you get a lot of tax money and you can pay us back. Well, they never get tax money. The damn things never work. So all of a sudden, you've got all of this useless stuff all over these countries, and they're in debt to the banks up to the Gahuza. So that's how they were taking over from an economic standpoint, nations all over the world. And that's why when some nation says, Coca-Cola, get the hell out of our country, and that country is made to look like there's some kind of crazy people, and certainly there must be Nazis or communists running them. Because, but the ones that wouldn't play ball were assassinated, which I'm assuming happened there. Now, what I find fascinating about the whole story that you just told me, it made me realize something. It made me realize that instead of building water plants for hydroelectric and making the big roads and doing these things, they're still doing it, but they're doing it with the electronics.
Yes, can I give you a quick example of what
Please.
just happened in Bangladesh? What happened is last week actually, was the deadline for everyone in Bangladesh using a cell phone, mobile phone, to do their biometric registration all over again. So otherwise it will be the SIM will be shut down, and they did shut everyone down, whoever didn't do the biometric. And this biometric, interestingly, is actually an obsolete technology. So, wasting all this money on an obsolete technology that can be hacked by the government.
I'm not even sure what that is. Can you explain bio?
Yeah, it's basically fingerprint. They take your fingerprint.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, that's it. So that's how, this is the new world order. Are you familiar with the black goo artificial intelligence thing?
So they made everybody that had a cell phone to give them their fingerprints again?
Yes.
So they had already done this in the past?
No, this is the first time. They just got this technology and got everybody in the country to do this last month.
And did they give any reason for this?
Yeah, it's just for security of the people, of course. That's the selling point, but that's people know that this is not the case. It's just imposed on us. There was no debate or there was no discussion that if this technology is really viable and it's meaningful, or does it give you the protection that people are looking for? We all know by now, I'm sure you know that there is no privacy in the digital world, right? Facebook or your cell phone or your PC, everything can be easily hacked, and surveillance can be turned on, and your cameras can be turned on from remotely. and stuff like that, right? Your television also.
Well, I totally agree with you. I mean, well, I was in electronic warfare in the 70s, so it's been gone for a long time. Hate to tell you, it happened before the internet even started up. But this is really intriguing to me because now you've got a situation where they're using technology in order to get the country economically in their hands because
yes,
they're making they being in this case the corporations and the banks, they're making it imperative that you have all this technology, but nobody knows really, well, how much does it really cost? It sounds like a government thing where the screw is a $10 screw, right? So
absolutely. It's $100 screw.
Right. So what we've got happening is you've got the same thing that Perkins is talking about, but now it's being done by technology. But in those countries where they put up the dam, okay, if the dam didn't work, even though they owned it, no big problem. You know, the people just ignore it, right? Nobody's got, they don't use the roads because there's no cars. So, you know, what's the point of that? But when you're talking technology, now you got the people by the balls.
Absolutely.
Because now the threat of losing your telephone, okay, will make you go, well, let me give you my fingerprints then.
Absolutely, because you need it every day for your job, you know what I mean? Most people do, so.
I mean, that is, I hadn't thought of, I mean, you see these kids and they take them off of their games and their electronics and the kids go into a breakdown. But I had not, for a stupid reason, I never thought of it as being a very intense control mechanism over every single individual.
Let me give you one more example. What they do, this government, this current regime, it's fairly violent and it totally cracks down on the opposition. So what they do is once in a while they would really beat up or kill some people. And when they do something like that, they would just turn off Facebook for I think it was last time it was turned off for nearly a month for the whole nation. Nobody could use Facebook. And they also turned off YouTube and other communication softwares like WhatsApp, Skype, stuff like that.
Well, let me tell you, one time there was something that Facebook had done that really, really enraged me. And so I went directly after them. I said, you people just did this and let's see how far you're going to take it. Are you going to take me down because I'm saying that this is the wrong thing to do? And by God, the next time I tried to get on Facebook, they were in some kind of a service maintenance. And they kept me down for 24 hours. Now, do I go after Facebook? No, I don't. Why? Because I need Facebook. Yeah. So I can absolutely attest that even though, I mean, you got to decide where to fight your battle, all right? Now, I'd give them my fingerprints too because they've already got all that shit. They don't need fingerprints. They've got voice prints. They've got us tagged. They can tell where anybody is at any given time. You know, I mean, the amount of information that they have is just, you know, staggering. Their real problem is they can't quite figure it out yet. You know, there's almost too much of it. So they deal with the people that they, you know, like people like me, people like you, people like all of us that are saying, hey, no. But why aren't they more going after us? I think it's because it's just happening too fast. You know, let's face it, if they took down the internet all over the world, we'd be back up. There's portable internet stations all over the place. Every computer can be made into an internet station. You know, it's not like they can't control it anymore. It's bigger than they are. Now, that is, you know, probably not good for them, but in the concept of AI, you know, well, this plays into it. So there are so many things that when you step back and you look at the proliferation of the electronics, it is just stunning to me. And it's stunning because in 1973, 74, that time frame, I was working very closely with the NSA. I was the Army's electronic warfare expert on the Soviet and the Warsaw
Wow.
abilities. And so I had to interface with NSA because, of course, NSA was, the first time I ever saw a readout on NSA's intercepts of radio and, mostly radio and television of the Soviet Union. The dang thing was sitting on the floor, and it went up for 3 feet, and it was the readout. It was just a readout. There was so much information, and I said, what are we supposed to do with this? And the guy says to me, well, that's our problem. We have a tremendous amount of information, but we don't know how to analyze it. Now, that's when they've got the bigger computers and different types of computers to be able to do this. But even then, there wasn't anything that, they couldn't find out about somebody. So, listen, we're at the top of the hour, so why don't we take a break, and then we'll, you doing good? I know you thought 2 hours would be difficult, but I'm hoping you're having you're certainly informing me of a lot of things. So, everybody good? Colleen, do you have a tune?
I do.
Okay, so we'll be back in a few minutes, all right? Thank you.
And you are live.
All right, thank you. This is World Talk with Friends, and I'm Nancy Hopkins. Colleen Kelly is producing. We are a listener-supported organization in that we have wolfspiritradio.com and we have HaggieShackRadio.com. HaggieShack.com. No radio on the end of it. And both of these, we'll take your donations with gratitude because it only goes towards the keeping up the station. There is also a membership that you can get into on Wolf Spirit that will allow you access to the archives that go way, way back and have many guests and hosts. So we appreciate your support, and mostly we just appreciate the fact that you're here listening, and we certainly are grateful for our guest, Renate, Jett, who was on last week talking about Africa and has brought on Neel, Akash, that is absolutely bringing us some information that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. I hope we're not getting you in trouble, Neel. And I really want Renate to kind of pick it up here and ask some questions over what we've covered if you've got some there. Are your mic open?
Mine's open.
Yes, I have it open now. No, I find it interesting. Listening is very, very interesting, and I can just see the country because it's similar to African countries from all these political and corrupt structures, I guess. It's quite similar. As you say, Neel, we don't want to say it, but they created the third world countries in order to have a first, second, and a third. So, and I'm really shocked about this, about what you just told us about that the people have to register who have a phone. So that's the control. It's amazing how the mind control works. They give you something for how long do we have these things now? Maybe 10, 15 years. People are completely addicted. The whole structure is you cannot live without it anymore almost. And then they can control you through that. That's quite, I actually expect that. And, but it's a shocker that, the Bangladesh people, and I know that in so-called third world countries, the minds of the people are working differently. I know that. And I know that Neel is one of the few probably in Bangladesh anyway who is conscious about these things. Maybe you have a few friends, but there is not a lot of space for that. So to control the people like that and to get them to register through the phones, it's wild. And I just thought when you told that, I thought chip. That's how they're gonna chip the Western population. Through that, through how we are drawn into things, through movies, and it's cool, and they will find a way so people run to get chipped by themselves. No?
Correct.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, yeah. And it's great that you bring that consciousness, and if we only talk about it, it will do something to all the people, you know. I always feel that when I like something on Facebook, when it's really about consciousness, it goes deeper. It's like a ripple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ripple effect. So what you are talking about and telling us, it's rippling through Bangladesh, hopefully, through that area, you know?
Well, it's not just the fact on a 3D concept that we're making connections, and I'm serious. I hope you don't get into trouble because of being open about what you're seeing there, because we can still say it here, and I'm hoping that, you know, it's just too big for them over there too to get onto, you know, people that are talking like this. But it's not just the effect that it might have on the people that hear this in Bangladesh or anywhere else. It's what happens to the collective consciousness when we have these conversations, when we are open and have the courage to have the conversations. Would you like to comment on that, either of you?
I meant that. I think it's always adding to the collective subconsciousness and consciousness. So, yeah, I agree.
Right. I just wanted to add one more thing, that this radio show with Colleen and Nancy and Renate, this little show, this will actually create quite a bit of stir for my people over here, because I have been doing this kind of talks on Facebook with my friends for many years now, right? Renate knows.
Yeah, so, I know, yeah.
So nothing happened to me so far, other than, you know, the normal, usual problems that everybody else seems to have.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And you're quite strong, I must add, no?
I think so. I've become strong, I think, because, you know, it seems to me that when you take the courage to say things, you know, then you realize that you're okay. And I'm like, okay, so you can say these things. People come and tell me, come on, wait a minute, you can't say these things. But I have in these things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you also have a YouTube presentation that is in your own nation's language.
Yes.
And what kind of subjects do you talk about there?
Similar to this, I talk about exopolitics a lot, because the reason I do that is because this is a predominantly Muslim culture, and the Muslim culture has a tendency to be very closed circuit. It doesn't want to open up to new ideas. You know this, right? So this is the typical fundamentalist totalitarian mentality. So,
well, probably any religion, fundamentalist of any religion.
But I think Islam is a bit more than the others. This is my personal observation. But I was going to say this radio show, because it's international, this will create this will open up neural pathways in the macro. You know what I mean? Because I'll get noticed, because I already tagged about 100 people for this show. So, and 50 people already responded to it. So this will create a bit of a stir. So I think I gotta thank Nancy and Colleen and Renate, because
super.
Yeah, I mean, this, you might think that we're just chatting, not saying anything all that deep or extraordinary, but as far as affecting the collective conscious, like we said, yeah, I think it's huge. At least to me it is. I never expected myself to be talking like this.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, listen, Neel, we will get you this audio, and you can put it up on your YouTube. You'll have an English version on your YouTube, because you're a guest. This is your show as well as ours, so you can do whatever you need to do with the audio.
Excellent. Thank you, Nancy.
And it's
our pleasure.
It's great, Neel. It's great. I knew that I knew it, because for us here, we talk, we still try to change things, yeah? But I know that in your country, or in the difficult countries, yeah, it's a whole different story. And people need to hear this, even if it seems for us so simple and like not a lot of what we talk about. But for the people in your country, it's like hearing like something completely new, that somebody can talk and say things they think or feel or don't dare to say. And I know how the police apparatus works in these countries and how immediately they grab the stick and beat and terrible. Terrible.
Yeah.
I know.
If they come after you, you're done for. There's no protection.
Yeah, there is no protection, right?
Yeah.
And that's really.
I think my safety net or safety charm or whatever it is that I'm so anomalous. The stuff that I study and I talk about on Facebook or on my blog, that is so outlandish and so outrageously obnoxious to the people here. They think I'm a joker. They really laugh at me. Who are you talking? So,
No.
you know what I mean? So more of a clown than a threat so far.
No, but I'm glad it worked out because I know how important it is for Africa. Also, you should invite. We should think about somebody from Africa and not only three girls talking about Africa. Even though it was beautiful talk, but it's so important. I'm just happy that it happened. Neel.
Yeah, thanks, Renate. I mean, this is great. I'd like to have Colleen make a comment if she's still listening. Is that possible?
Colleen, are you there? Our guest is asking to ask you a question. Well, she's babysitting a 4-year-old, so I'm not even sure she's at the controls.
That's okay. No problem.
So she probably, but what did you want to ask her? Or you wanted her to ask you something or what?
Yeah, I just wanted to hear her voice, that's all. Yeah, that's okay. No problem.
Oh yeah, she does have a lovely voice. Let me just, and she'll be back. And I'm sure I can just see her running around there trying to keep this 4-year-old from touching any of the controls. The fact that we're still up means just she's succeeding, I think.
She's like, she's still in control.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, now back to the actual Bangladesh itself.
Okay.
We have a lot of people there, and you said there's at least 3 caste systems. Now, is this something very structured or something that, based on more than economy, or because I know the economics always plays into it, but can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
No, there's no caste system here, not officially, but there's financial divide, of course. For instance, the weird thing about Bangladesh, this is typically here, I think, is that poor people are treated differently and as a lower class. So if you're a peon in a corporate office, if you're just a T-boy, then you remain that for the rest of your life. You never become an officer. You never, climb up the ladders. So that creates a class difference where there's a glass ceiling and you cannot cross it. But other than that, even in the Hindu culture, which is very minor in Bangladesh, Hindus are so cornered. They always feel threatened by the Muslims. And another interesting thing that I should tell you about is there is this big talk, there's this big push, I feel, to bring ISIS to Bangladesh because this is a predominantly Muslim country. So the foreign powers or whoever it is, the shadow government or whatever it is, they have been pushing to declare that there's ISIS elements in Bangladesh and there's some terrorist threats, which is totally bogus because basically we get a murder here and there. Hindu people get murdered, certain people get murdered, foreigners get murdered. And as soon as that happens, the whole country, the Muslims, most of the Muslims, start screaming that, wait a minute, Islam is a religion of peace. We should not be doing weird things, strange things. But nobody ever questions the fact that who is actually doing the murders. Is it really the fundamental people, the Islamic faction of the country? And they do have this reputation, but this reputation is actually on the media, if you ask me, because I've been observing this, and I have been writing against Islam for many years now. And I'm brutal. I totally let it out. I don't hold back. And nothing happened to me. So if these guys were really all that violent, they would have come after me because not too many people know me, but some people do, right? So, and I live in Bangladesh and I have friends and family. So nobody came after me. So what's going on, you know? So
But Neel, it depends, I think that the line is on how many followers you would have.
yeah, that is a factor.
You know?
That's definitely a big factor. But still,
You would have more people and they would like see that and notice that. I think they would. So you better not have followers, okay?
But you say that, but I noticed the people who actually did get murdered, or at least they say they got murdered. And they didn't seem to have all that many followers either. And they didn't have that much anything terrible to say against Islam either. So it's kind of, it makes you wonder why these things are actually happening and who's doing it. So it's more of a propaganda and psyops and false flag rather than really an Islamic problem.
Okay, can you do me a favor, just because I think I get my handle on it and then it fades away again. What do you see as the fundamental difference between Islam and the Muslim religion?
Well, it's essentially...
That was the question.
Apparently.
Isn't that interesting? Renate, are you here?
Yeah, I'm there. He's gone or what?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure. Islam and Muslims. Okay, there it was. There he left us. Oh.
No, I'm still here.
No, okay.
Okay, he's back.
I think I pressed the mute button accidentally by mistake. But,
Oh, thank God. Oh, man. Scaring us.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. So, no, Islam and Muslim is the same thing, but what I mentioned earlier was Wahhabism. That's a different term that I have been learning. So this is more of a Freemasonic, bastardized, distorted version of Islam that's much more fundamentalist, much more strict, and they keep getting worse and worse. Like women are getting more covered in dark black clothes and you cannot see their faces. And they're trying to push these agendas that, you know, it's perfectly Islamic to hide your face. But it's not Islamic actually. I have studied this in the past because I'm from a Muslim background, even though I renounced the religion now. But I did study, and it says clearly that for women, face must be visible, including your ears. So this is very important for facial recognition of a person, right? This is for security purposes, for identification. So your face must be shown. And this is also true for Catholics who also hide their hair and much of their face, their head, hair, neck areas. So that's common sense. But now it's changing. They're trying to say, no. You don't show your face. You just make two little holes in front of your eyes, and that's the best way to do it. So this is Wahhabism, right? This is the extra, Islam on steroids. More fundamentalism. It's going backwards. Yeah.
Neel, can I ask you something? Is that also, I think it's Saudi Arabia, no? Wahhabism is a lot in Saudi Arabia, no?
Yeah, because the Saud family of Saudi Arabia are probably not real, true native Muslims or Arabs. I think they come from somewhere else. I think they're Jew background or something.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I think there's research on this.
Yeah,
and
just one question. Is that where the booklet came out, How to Beat Women for What?
Oh, I haven't seen this.
That just came out, was floating on the internet. I just thought, wow, this is terrible,
Yeah. There's actually, I think there are, just as CIA, COINTELPRO, whose job is to create chaos and put out bullshit news and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They do the same thing with Islam. They do fundamentalist crazy ideas and try to promote these as Islamic ideas. Just to make Islam look bad. And, you don't really know the source of these information. So you think that, oh my God, Islam is so bad.
So
Islam is actually, sorry, but Islam is actually so beautiful, no, isn't it?
I don't know. Maybe the original teachings were good, but the way it's practiced now. See, I do have debates with people sometimes about Islam, and people try to tell me, look, Islam is one thing, and what we practice is another thing. I'm like, yeah, that's right. You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay, I believe that. Because most people don't really dig into it. They just learn the superficial things, and they follow. But essentially, what you're following is creating our reality, right? Because your behavior dictates our lives. So what does it matter how beautiful the original kosher Islam really was? Because nobody's practicing it.
Right.
So essentially, what's the effect? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a distorted thing. No, it's actually taken. The origins are taken and distorted and used to control masses. No.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the primary purpose of it. But people try to defend Islam, saying that no, that just happens. Some people do that, but it's a beautiful way of life. But I don't know, because I find the God of Islam schizophrenic, because why would you want circumcision? Why would your God want to sacrifice animals, so many of them in a year? And then, so it's schizophrenic. It's hard to decide, because spiritual leaders teach us non-violence. We shouldn't eat animals. People say that. But then again, we do eat it, and people sometimes maybe have to because of lack of food or whatever. But the thing is, it doesn't jive with other spiritual teachings, and that's kind of conflicting. So it's difficult to figure out, is this teaching really clean, or is it highly corrupted or moderately corrupted?
It's highly corrupted.
I think so too. This is my personal,
Highly corrupted,
But yes, people don't want to hear these things. The culture is quite the real threat in Islam. I find the real violence in Islamic culture is the ignorance of the average person, not the fundamentalist madrasa students learning how to use a sword and cutting people's veins or jugular. No, that's the Zionist propaganda. The real violence is people not studying beyond a few books and their dogmatic indoctrination. And they don't go beyond that.
Yeah, but Neel, I agree.
Yeah.
But my feeling is, or how I see it in the world, not only in your country or everywhere, that the people are made to be so ignorant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through food, through whatever education, food program, but it's something done on purpose.
Absolutely, it's by design. It's so huge that you cannot
Right. So I'm just saying, because I don't want to blame the people, because
absolutely.
the intelligence, the means, the tools, the people have who are doing this control mechanism thing, are so beyond our understanding that I just don't want to say that it's the people's fault. But you're right, it's the people who don't, but they're made that way, Just clear.
I want to comment on this. People tell me, okay, so you tell me all these informations, so how do we change anything? And that's a good question. So what can we do? So I try to tell them that, look, before we can do something, we have to raise our consciousness, because first you understand the problem, and then you can do something about it. But that doesn't make people happy. They want a solution yesterday. So, and people tell me, okay, you're just one person. So what are you going to do? Who's going to listen to you? You can talk to maybe 10, 20 people, but that's it. So you can't change anything. So why bother with these things? You might as well, have a happy life and, get the good things in life and, live on. Why do you get stuck with these stupid conspiracy theories, and who's going to, how are you going to help? So, I know my answer, but I don't answer to people, because I know, people who are stuck in that mode. they don't want to hear what I have to say. But
what's your answer? What's your answer, Neel?
my answer is look at me now. I'm talking to you three across the Atlantic, right? And I'm having this 2-hour long radio show explaining what's happening in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So
It's awesome.
is this totally meaningless? I don't think so. I think this is great, you know? And I don't have to be Alex Jones. I don't want to be Alex Jones.
No,
I'm happy I made this connection because, you know, I have something to show for. Because I try to live off the grid. I want to be independent. I want to have my sovereignty. I don't even have a job right now. I have very little, I survive on very little money. I have no car, you know. And so it's like I made lots of sacrifices in many ways just to do what I like. Because what I do, I enjoy it very much. Because, you know, I've been talking for over an hour now, but I'm not tired. I'm not bored. I'm excited, right? So that's how my life has been for the last, Renate knows, right? Renate, you know this, right, Renate?
Yeah, I know.
Go crazy looking at my Facebook because how do you do this? How can you read so much?
Yeah. Yeah, you're working hard, it's true. You're a hard worker to bring consciousness to your people and to the world, it's true.
Yeah, but I don't feel it because I'm excited about it, you know what I mean? So that's how life feels.
Neel, let me tell you, you're exciting to me because you are so, I don't want to say typical because we're all so very individual, but the typical person who is awakened and is now like, holy crap, we got to tell people about this. And yes, when
that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, when you get into it, it's also very scary because initially you don't see the solutions. Okay, so what happened was that I've been at this for a very, very long time, and I wrote a book that I self-published in 2013 that is called Cosmic Reality, and it's actually 2 books. The first book it starts really with the John Kennedy assassination, and it goes up through, about the 70s, through the 70s. And then the second book, which is called Down the Rabbit Hole, I bring everybody up to, 2013. What are the problems? Well, there's chemtrails, there's the banking situation where it's all mirrors and smoke. There's the fact corporations are running the world. I mean, all of the things that you now know, I talked about. And while I was, it was a weird thing because I know exactly what Renate means when she says, how can you read this much? There was somebody on Facebook by the name of Matty Ronan who was in Great Britain. So he would do all this research when he got home, and then by the time I get on the computer, I've got this list of research that he has done. And I can't tell you how important he was in focusing me on certain things because he had already looked at the good things. He's already giving me the good things. And so I would study these things and I would write position papers and I would just file them away. So when I put together Down the Rabbit Hole, it was just bringing in all of these different little, briefings that I had written myself, and it all came together. Normally when you're writing a book, you're this got to go here, this got to go there, you start messing around with it. None of that happened. And then I thought I had finished the book, and all of a sudden something metaphysical happens, and I go, all right, obviously something's not happening here. And I went, what did I miss? And so I started to go back into the book from the back to the front, and all of a sudden I realized that where I should have talked about what's going to make the difference, what's the real difference, I had not even probably seen it. And the difference was that in order to be able to manifest anything, and this is based on quantum physics, okay, you have to have consciousness. There has to be a thought before anything can happen. Pure quantum physics. Well, if that's true, then we have to have a super consciousness, creator God, creator consciousness that has created the biosphere of Earth. Now, she goes by many, many names, and the names can range from, Sophie to Mother Earth. Every culture has a slightly different name. And when I started writing about this, and I was writing about it from a scientific aspect, in that a number of different scientific modalities have looked at this thing about, well, where did it all start? And how did this thing happen, this biosphere? And they all came to the same conclusion. You have to have thought, therefore there is some kind of a creator God. And they all came to the conclusion, it's also can be found under the subject noosphere, N-O-S-P-here, yeah. And what they're saying is that the best way to explain it is this way. You got a molten ball of energy that comes together, and it pulls in 3D dust and crap, and it becomes this molten, gaseous kind of thing. That cools and becomes Earth. Then the consciousness that is dictating all this, because you have to have thought to even start this, is now saying, wonder what happens if I add water to the mix. So you start to look at it from a consciousness developing of some kind of a manifested situation. You see the levels of consciousness. So that's what they were investigating, and they came to the conclusion that sooner or later, and probably sooner, you're going to have a new jump in consciousness of this creator God. Now, at the level that we're at, the human beings were, that a human being could understand what it was like to be themselves, maybe, if left alone. But a shaman could understand what it was like to be a crow or a bear or anything, because their consciousness could expand and then therefore sort of like become part of another consciousness, to see it, to feel it. But that's a shaman. And I was led to the belief that the next jump in consciousness of the creator sphere, the creator consciousness that's created this biosphere, would be one of shamanism, a shamanic mind, a mind that could see into worlds that are not 3D because they're operating in a different frequency. And so when they talk in terms of enlightenment, I think of it as going into the shamanistic mind. Now, as I was writing all this, I started using the word Gaia. And I'm going like, wait a minute, why am I using this word? It's not a word that I'd seen it, but it wasn't familiar to me. I had to look it up, and it's the Greek word from Mother Nature. And I knew at that moment that Gaia, the word, was a power word. And that the concept of a power word is that it's a frequency that imbues power and energy into something. Okay. And so in this case, the more times we say the word Gaia, we're actually injecting a powerful energy force into Mother Nature by another name. It's been kept secret. We are suspicious that maybe the G in Freemason symbol is Gaia, not geometry and not God. So when I realized that this was the potential, what was happening, I realized that we cannot survive without Gaia, and she cannot survive without us. And that was the mistake that the dark side made, is that they thought that by destroying Gaia, they would keep us from making this new leap of consciousness. And in fact, the more of us that kind of like become one with the concept of, hey, if we don't save the planet, there's nothing here to live on, let's get this straight. It's kind of like, duh. But it was taken from us, kept from us. She was put into a state of neutralization. She's not important. We can do anything we want to her. And yet she is an extraordinarily powerful being whose future we depend on. So I committed myself to being subservient to the needs of Gaia. In the book, I flat out said it, okay? Within 4 months of that, I was introduced to a mineral that only comes from Russia, and it's called shungite. All right? Now, shungite is the field in Russia, which is about 1,000 kilometers square, and I hear that it goes down to maybe 400 feet in some areas. It's a huge deposit. It's been there for 2 to 4 million years. It's also been identified as the place where the earliest form of life began. My feeling is, and I could give you the interpretation on the other side, but my feeling is that Gaia called in this stuff that can only be created in a vacuum that is called a fullerene. It's a molecule. And that it was contained within whatever this thing was that smashed into this area of Russia just to the east of Finland. And from there, early life came out because the fullerene in its geometric form actually links up to the quantum field and starts pulling quantum energy into the 3D. So in and of itself, that fullerene, and it's one of the most, well, according to Dr. Richard Allen Miller, it was a fullerene it was the fullerene concept that took down the towers on 9/11. I don't know what he's talking about, but it would not surprise me. The fullerene is without a doubt the most intriguing. We're talking about the 60 carbon fullerene. It looks like a soccer ball, all right? And it's just full of just quantum information that this is science, okay? But what happens with shungite is that the field is so powerful because of the quantum connection, all right, that it can actually make changes into our environment that look magical. Now, for 400 years, they have absolutely known that the shungite, the third largest lake in Europe is in this shungite field, and it's actually absolutely pristine. They just put pipes in it and suck it out. They use, Peter the Great had his soldiers putting shungite nuggets in their canteens because it would purify the water. Probably now, all of the water systems, purification systems in Russia are based on shungite, not carbon. So it's got a huge history. There's a tremendous amount of science about it. But then I start reading about the Russian army using shungite to shield their electronic equipment. So I get intrigued in this, and because I was an electronic warfare officer, and I started to investigate it. And what's happening with the shungite regarding electromagnetic fields is the electromagnetic field hits the shungite field, and the shungite field is so powerful it actually attenuates. And that's the word that was the best translation of what the Russians were perceiving. That when the field of electromagnetic energy hits the shungite field, there's a problem, because the electromagnetic field has been designed to rotate counterclockwise. Now, everything that's natural and in nature rotates clockwise. So the shungite field is rotating clockwise. And it's like two tops that come together. And the shungite top, is so powerful that when the electromagnetic top hits it, it reverses spin instantaneously. Now it's going clockwise, and it will not hurt you. Because all of this electromagnetic energy around us that's rotating clockwise is tearing our cells apart.
Right.
Okay? Now this is called shungite. And the reason that I'm telling you this is that we have entered into a new and magical place. And why I use the word magical is magic is only the manipulation of energy. Electricity looks very magical until you understand how it's working. It's the manipulation of electricity. Okay? Now the real question is, what is electricity? What's a magnetism? What's shungite field? All of this stuff. This is called the study of enerology. All right? It's been around for a long time, but very few people really talk about it. And what is happening with the shungite is that all over the world, people are beginning to have their own pieces of shungite. They are affecting the electromagnetic fields in and around themselves. And once you reverse those fields and you're no longer under attack, you get stable. Once you're stable, you begin to make the connections to the higher self. So there are solutions out there of a massive potential. But it all comes from Gaia, because when the dark side started to try to muck with this planet, they tried to minimalize her. And you can't. She is this planet. She is everything we are. So that's the key to trying to, I think, make the next jump in making people aware. You have to make them aware that there are problems, but you also have to be very aware of the solutions.
Yeah, very, very important.
So, and the biggest solution I can give you is shungite. And if you go to my website, cosmicreality.net, you'll find so much information on what this magical thing can do, but we call it the gift of Gaia. Gaia is so powerful, she can give an average human being something that will free them from that electromagnetic grid. And we've got all the services. We've got all the services because it just reverses the field. See, they could have actually, they didn't have to make a counter rotating electromagnetic field. Now, my suspicion is they're just dumb and that's the way they did it. My partner Walt thinks it's a conspiracy and that they did it to tear us apart. Regardless, shungite will reverse the field. And so, in my opinion, I kind of see the dark side doing all these things that in order to try to control us, but what they're doing is they've built this huge grid, this electromagnetic grid that has brought us together on this show, on this internet, right now, okay? But at the same time, they've built this amazing grid that they're using to control us. Now, with shungite in the picture, they're no longer able to control us, and in fact, we now have hijacked their own system.
Super.
We are so powerful that people just don't understand their own power. And what I find to be the most, let's say, the smoothest way to get somebody to start opening up is to tell them, do you know how powerful you are, that your very thoughts create your very reality? I'm just suggesting that this is a way that I find that people because if you tell somebody, you are really, really good, they're more inclined to listen to you than if you say, things are really screwed up. And I looked at that, I learned that the hard way. So just as somebody that's been in this for a long time, Neel, you might want to just think about that.
Absolutely. But this shungite thing, what does it look like, or how do you use it again?
It actually looks like coal. Okay, pieces of coal. It's just the weirdest thing in the world, actually. It's this big deposit where, there's chunks of it laying all around. It's like, something hit. So what they do is, like I say, it started out with the water and then it went into the electromagnetics. They use it for, they can make like St. Petersburg, when they first built the area that Peter the Great was the center of his house and the government and everything. A third of it was they used shungite slabs and bricks.
Oh, okay.
It's just like a big, huge brick. Now, when we use it, we take nuggets. They can be anywhere between 3/4 of an inch. Well, about most of them, about 3/4 of an inch to 2 or 3 inches to wrap wire around it. Now, when you put a copper wire around shungite, a weird thing about shungite is that electricity flows through it. Okay, most everything else, unless it's metal or something that's conductive, it doesn't work. But the mineral shungite actually, will let the electricity go through it. When you take a wire and you wrap it in, they look at my pendants and they think, oh yeah, it's a piece of wire wrapped around it. Well, it's a piece of wire that's wrapped around it in a special way. You have to be very aware of the field because there's a north and south to the shungite nugget. There's a left and right. Sometimes they want you to go to the right, sometimes they want you to go to the left. But you have to get merged with this, and so we're making these energy devices, these pendants. And there's a lot of you can just use a nugget and it's going to have a similar effect, but when you add the wire, it increases the field. Because now you're pulling orgone into the thing. Alright? So, we've done a tremendous amount of study in this. Walt Silva goes back decades researching enterology. And what we found out is that the smaller the better. I've had like a 15-pound brick of shungite. And that brick is no more powerful than a few flecks of the dust. Because, it's because of the, when you're thinking quantum, you're thinking space between stuff. I mean, nothing is very close to anything. We're all really like air. They talk about us being water. We're air, for crying out loud. There's space between us. And so when you get down to the powdered form of it, we noticed, we were actually, well, I noticed it, but then Walt, who's a shamanic journeyer, he found out from the guides that when you have 3 nuggets of shungite together, you have what they call cohesive field. And it just holds the field together, and it becomes more out of the 3 pieces. And when you get down into the powdered thing, you've got all of these relationships of these 3s together. So it becomes extraordinarily powerful at powder. So you can just use a little bit of it and get massive changes. And so that's why we have these things called stickers. Just got a bunch of powder on it. And it's like a silver saturated powder. That's another story. But you can put it on your cell phone, and the cell phone now completely reverses its energy. It's clockwise. It's not going to hurt you. And it feeds back onto the system. We don't know how far. But we have noticed that, I've been on the phone when somebody stuck the sticker on the phone. And actually had the phone disconnect, and then when it came back, it was clearer than ever. The phones won't get heated up on you. The batteries last longer. Everything wants to rotate clockwise, but the bad side can destroy you if they rotate it the other way. All toxins have an energy field rotating clockwise, or counterclockwise. So there are massive scientific information that can change things very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I all the time I'm posting on my Cosmic Reality page the different solutions that are coming up. Just people thinking outside of the box. And so if you could get rid of the old stuff, you could change very rapidly. So Walt pointed out, he said, well, why do you want to change the old reality? It's working perfectly well. Everybody is being controlled. And so what we decided to do was to actually start thinking about a new reality. People just start thinking about a different way of doing things and just come together and do it. And sooner or later, the rest of them are going to go, hey, those people got all the apples over there. We got nothing here. And so they jump ship, and then there's not enough energy for the old thing to happen. Because there was an old, I don't even know where it came from. It came from the 60s, but we used to say, the world's not going to end in a bang. It's going to end in a whimper. That's what we're talking about. We're just going to make a new reality. They can have that until we don't have any more energy. So there is hope out there, Neel. We can do this, and I'm so happy that you're on the voyage here.
Totally.
You want to say we're getting near the top of the hour? See, I told you 2 hours wasn't going to be long enough.
It went fast.
What would you like to kind of wrap up with? Something that you'd like to pass on?
Yeah, I guess first thing that popped up in my mind is my favorite topic, exopolitics.
That's one thing we do not like. We are not on the same page.
Okay, never mind.
But it's okay. Go ahead. I'm fine with it. I don't unfriend people just because they don't think about whatever. I think,
what do you mean by exopolitics? Define that.
It's basically the just 2 guys who are the founding fathers, I guess. Dr. Michael Salla. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
Okay. And Alfred Lammerman Weber. These 2 guys are the proponents of this idea. This is talking about interplanetary politics, basically. Politics between planets. And as we know, I'm sorry?
Aliens, no? Extraterrestrials.
Extraterrestrials, right.
We actually, over here on Haggy Shack, we call them the out-of-towners.
Okay. That's what they really are, I think. Right. So Renate and I had a little bout last night, I think, about flat Earth theories. Some people are talking about it. Renate, do you want to say something about it?
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I like Alfred. I think he's great. I'm sure there are. I just never met one or saw one. I just cannot talk about, about that. But I followed Alfred a long time, and I really like what he proposes and what he also, the work he does, because he really does good work in many areas. So it's great. It's great. And I don't need to defend anything,
No, that's fine.
For me, it's also research. Just as everything is a research. We are trying to research our original and maybe true natures of many, many things. So I am open, and with the flat earth, it's something which makes me happy, and I can feel it physically. So, and when people have a problem with it, I don't mind, but it doesn't mean that I am a different person now. You know what I mean? It's just on my path of my research, I came across that, and it resonates with me tremendously. That's all I can say, So people are angry. People are taking away the infinite universe. Of course, some of them will lose the money source. You know what I mean? Others lose listeners. They don't like to lose listeners. I understand that. But that's, I cannot stop when something is resonating with me just because 3/4 of the world say, oh, you're crazy or whatever. I don't stop there. You know what I mean? So I just want to say thank you, Neel, for really letting us know about your country. I wish we would also talk about the beautiful sides of your country, because I'm sure it does have, just thinking about spices, colors, whatever, it must be awesome. No?
Beautiful music too. We have very good music. And very good food.
Yeah, so, just to also talk about the good things,
Right.
Yeah, see, I'm just thankful that you do that. That's awesome, and I'm so happy that I met you all through Bill Brockbrader. I wonder where he is, and I hope he's good. Bill, if you hear that, I hope you're good and happy.
Right.
Strong and healthy.
Absolutely.
She said that you left Brockbrader's group, Neel. Did you or not? I mean,
I think he got kicked out by the one woman who kicked out everybody.
You mean Eva kicked you out too?
No, I was friends with Eva. I don't think it was her. Somebody else. I think. I don't remember right now. Maybe it was her too.
She kicked me out too.
Okay. I think it was her, but then we became friends afterwards.
She's no, Bill's doing fine. Not that I have had personal contact with him. Please, I don't have any contact with him except
you heard that he's good. That's good.
But he's fine. He's
good. And Bill, if you're listening, man, I hope you're cool. Really good, strong and kicking.
Yeah, we want to hear from you again.
Yeah, forget you, man.
Yeah.
I suspect you're going to hear from him, but I don't know you'll know it's his voice.
Okay.
They haven't stopped. I mean, if you remember when he first started to talk about the Camelot episode that he did with Carrie, he said that he was approached by white hats. To join them. Well, he was never away from the white hats. I don't know that message really got to people, is that what he went through, what he demonstrated, some of it was not foreseen, but it was done to keep them looking at Bill and not what was happening in the background.
Yeah. He talked about that. Sorry. Yeah, he talked about that in the videos he did somehow outside, no?
Yes, that's exactly true. We owe him so much because so many of us, for whatever weird reason, so many of us got on that group and just came together and have stayed together. That's where I met you.
Yeah, and that's really what he really did. He brought a lot of, not with everybody, but many from that group and time That's awesome. It was just really the right time, no?
Yeah, it definitely was. Well, Neel, we definitely want you to come back. I'll get with you off live, and we will give them your blog, please. What's your blog? As a matter of fact, Colleen, can you type it in here, Neel, and we'll put it in the chat. Type it in the message on the Skype, and Colleen, if you can do that, if you're listening, put it in because I can't go over to chat. I get so confused. Tell you.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Colleen.
Oh God, yeah, I have a problem when I get into chat. What's coming up next? We got Haggie Reads for you, and then we've got Fans of Whitley, and then JP takes over the station, and he will be on until Friday, is it? Yeah, Friday.
Right, but Haggie Shack also has, sorry about that, Spooky Pants on tonight with Yvonne Palermo and Dino Ewalt. And I'm also got a pod sent over to me from Awake Radio that I'll be playing today too. So you'll have a choice between Wolf Spirit Radio and Haggie Shack. So that's...
And Spooky Pants is a fun show.
It is. Last week was awesome.
I mean, just the name of it, imagine.
Spooky
well, listen.
What? Spooky Pants?
Spooky Pants, P-A-N-T-S.
Okay.
So we thank you so much, Neel. I so appreciate you, and Renate, again, appreciate you. We will get back together. We're only just beginning to make the journey. All of us are on, very far down the same path, but now there's we're all getting together, I think, in a much more intense way. So I appreciate you both. Colleen, love you. Thank you so much for being our producer. And that's it, I guess. We'll sign off now. Everybody be safe, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night and good day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for visiting. You have been listening to World Talk with Friends, a Haggie Shack radio production simulcast over the Wolf Spirit Media Network.